Hi, welcome to Digital with Darren. I have a master's degree in physics at Imperial College London and graduated in 1997. I designed satellites at Matra Marconi Space, and I spent 20 years as a quantitative trader on proprietary and flow trading desks in the City of London. Okay, so this video is on functions in JavaScript. It's about how to use functions in JavaScript and NodeJS. The contents are as follows. First bit is JavaScript functions. Then we go on to JavaScript function syntax, function invocation, function return, why use functions, the bracket operator, which invokes the function, function used as variable values, and local variables. So, JavaScript functions. A JavaScript function is a block of code designed to perform a particular task. A JavaScript function is executed when something invokes it or calls it. Here is an example of a JavaScript function. We see the function keyword, then the function name, which is in orange here, and then some parameters to the function. Let's zoom in a tiny bit so that it's even clearer. The JavaScript function syntax. A JavaScript function is defined with the function keyword, followed by a name, and then followed by parentheses, brackets. The parentheses may include parameter names separated by commas, and you can have as many parameters as you like. So in this particular case, it's showing two parameters, parameter 1 and parameter 2, with a ... meaning additional possible parameters. The code to be executed by the function is placed inside the curly brackets. Here's the example below. We have a function. We name it. Then we have parameters. So in this case, we've got 3 parameters. Parameter 1, 2, and 3. And then we have the code block inside the curly braces. And this is a commented piece of code that will be executed. So all of the lines of code below would be executed if we put code in here. Function parameters are listed inside the parentheses and in the function definition. Function arguments are the values received by the function when it is invoked. Inside the function, the arguments, or the parameters, behave as local variables. A function is much the same as a procedure or a subroutine in other programming languages. Function invocation. The code inside a function will execute when something invokes or calls the function. So invoke is a technical word for calling a function or acquiring it. When an event occurs, when a user clicks a button, when it is invoked, called from JavaScript code, automatically self-invoked, it calls itself recursive functions. We will learn a lot more about function invocation later in this tutorial. Function return. When JavaScript reaches a return statement, the function will stop executing. If the function was invoked from a statement, JavaScript will return to execute the code after the invoking statement. The program returns on the next line of code. So an example to calculate the product of two numbers and return the result. Here we call the function var x equals is assigned to my function, and we're passing in arguments of 4 and 3. The function is called, the return value will end up in x. The function is called below my function. The parameters a, b take the values of 4 and 3 in this case, and the function returns the product of a and b. Right here, a times b, and that will exit the function. So why use functions? The main purpose is that you can reuse code. You define the code only once and use it many times. You can use the same code many times with different arguments to produce different results. So in the example below, we have Fahrenheit to Celsius. Here, the function called toCelsius takes in one parameter called Fahrenheit. It then performs a calculation, which is 5/9 times the Fahrenheit subtracted by 32, and returns this value. We see in this case that we can log the outputs to the console. We can do this as many times as we like, without having to rewrite the code for each one. So in the first case, we convert 50 degrees, then we convert 75 degrees, and then we convert 100 degrees. Let's see this in a piece of code that can actually be executed. Notice, if we run this code as it is, the functions won't actually execute. I'm going to hit F5 on the keyboard and let's see what happens. Okay, we need to run it in JavaScript rather than Python. That would help, otherwise it will create an error. And we see nothing happened. And the reason why nothing happened is these two functions have not yet been called. So let's make a call to the function. We're going to first test the my function on line 15 here. So we will set let result equal my function, open brackets. And we can see here that we've got the two values, P1 and P2, to put in there. So we'll put in numbers 5, 10. We expect the function to return 5 times 10 because it takes in 5 into P1 and 10 into P2, and it returns P1 times by P2. We'd have to log this to the console to see it, So let's do that. Log to the console, result. And now we'll run this piece of code. And here we see the value is 50. Now, let's do the same for the next function. Here we have 3 parameters, value 1, value 2, and value 3. In this particular case, the logging to the console is actually done inside the function. We can do that if we like. We don't always have to return a value. So let's just call the function, and it should print to the screen the sum of, or the product of value 2 times value 3, and then added on value 1. So we will just run the function without actually assigning it into a variable, because there's no need in this case. So name, well, let's call this function product and sum, because it is the product of value 2 and value 3, and then add on value 1. So product and sum. And the first argument, let's just set it to the number 1 to keep things simple. And then the second argument, let's just set it to the number 2. And the third argument, let's set it to the number 3. Now we are expecting to get 2 times 3, which is equal to 6. And then we're going to have 6 plus 1, which is equal to 7. And this is what should be returned, the value 7. So let's run the code and see. And here we see that we get 50 from the first function, as before, which was the 5 times 10. And here we get the 7 as an output. We can also write or do other things inside the function. It doesn't have to be a one line. So we could log to the console and put a comment in there. The product of value 2 and value 3 summed to value 1. Now when we run the code, an extra line will have been input. And here we see the extra line input. And we could write as many lines as code inside this function as we so desired. Now, let's get back. The brackets operator invokes the function. Using the example above, to Celsius refers to the function object, and to Celsius with the brackets refers to the function result. If we were to run this code, we would see the following. So here's the function that's created, and this is what it would return. If we did console.log to Celsius 50, we would actually get a result. If we did console.log to Celsius, well, this isn't running the function, This is just going to return the actual object. So let's actually take this and pass it into our code and run the code. And here we see the console to Celsius returned the value 10, but the call of just to Celsius just returned a function called to Celsius. Let's make this a tiny bit clearer just by putting in an extra couple of logs so that we can see. Log function with brackets used. Log function with no brackets used. F5. And here we go. The function with the brackets used returned 10. The function with no brackets used returned the object itself. And the object is to Celsius. Functions used as variable values. Functions can be used the same way as you use variables in all types of formulas, assignments, and calculations. Example: instead of using a variable to store the return value of a function, we can do the following. So here, we use the variable to store the return value of the function to Celsius. The to Celsius operates on the 77 and yields a result back, and this gets assigned into X. We then create a text string, and the string is formed in such a way that the temperature is X Celsius. The alternative is to just put the to Celsius directly into the text string. So here we write the temperature is, and instead of using X, we just put the to Celsius 77 straight in there. Now when the code runs, it interprets it in the same way and it completes the string. Let's see this in action. Okay. Log to the console, testing, using variable, compared to using function. So here we created the string text using variable, and that will log to the console as per line 46. And here we're using function, using variable with the X, using function with the actual function itself. Both should produce the same result. So let's run the code and see. And here we get it. Testing using variable compared to function. The temperature is 25 Celsius. That's using the variable. And the temperature is 25 Celsius. And that's using the function. So both are equivalent to each other. The function behaves as a variable. Local variables. Variables declared within a JavaScript function become local to the function. Local variables can only be accessed from within the function. And that means inside the function block or within these curly braces. So in the example, the code here, if any code was written here, it cannot use car name. Car name is defined inside the function and is only valid inside the function. Here we have assigned car name the string value of Volvo. So we could log to the console, console.log car name. We can do this. If we assigned it outside, it wouldn't work. As we see, we hit the end of the code block, and anything outside cannot use this function that we use, this variable that we used called car name. Let's try it. Here's a function called myFunction. We will actually change that. Go here, paste the function in. We'll call it about car. Now, we have this variable called car name. If we run the code, and if we call our function, so let's call a function about car, and remember we need the brackets, otherwise we're calling the description of it and not actually invoking the function. And when we run it, we'll get car name at the end. This piece of code inside will run, and we will log to the console car name, and car name is of string value Volvo. And here we see Volvo at the end. Now, let's try and use the variable outside of the function. So we'll try to log to the console car name. And notice how car name doesn't exist in the same way with these little coloured functions and objects. It comes up with a white ABC. It's recognised that it exists in the code, but it's not recognised that it exists. So there's already a clue that this is not going to work. And when we run the code, we get this error. Reference error. Car name is not defined. Car name did not exist outside of the function. So let's remove it and go back. Since local variables are only recognized inside their functions, variables with the same name can be used in different functions. In a way, they're protected. Local variables are created when a function starts and deleted when the function is completed. And that is the end. Thank you for listening. So, thank you for watching my video. I hope it was helpful. And if you did like it, then please press the thumbs up like button and also press the follow button below. I will have more programming videos and also some trading and math ones to come too. Thank you very much.